January 3rd, 2019, 2:47 a.m. Beijing time. Chang'e-4 touches down on the far side of the moon, the side we never see, the side that's been dark for 4 billion years. And here's the thing. China goes completely silent for 72 hours. No press conference, no victory photos, no congratulations from Xi Jinping. Just radio silence from a government that broadcasts every achievement like it's the second coming. You don't find that strange? Look, I've been tracking space programs for 20 years, and when a superpower lands on the moon, they throw a parade. They issue commemorative stamps. They milk it for every drop of propaganda value. But China? They landed the first probe ever on the lunar far side and acted like it never happened. Something made them go quiet. And what I'm about to show you, the photos they tried to bury, the mission logs that leaked, the radio transmissions that weren't supposed to exist, it's going to change how you see everything. Because they found something up there. Something that doesn't fit any model of lunar formation. Something that shouldn't exist according to everything we know about the moon's history. And when you see the evidence, the actual crystalline structures, the thermal readings, the geometric patterns in the crater walls, you're going to ask the same question Chinese scientists asked when they first saw the data. What the hell is that? Now, before we go further, think about this. The official story says they went silent because of communication delays. Standard protocol, nothing to see here. But if that's true, why did 3 Chinese astrophysicists resign within 6 months of the landing? Why did the European Space Agency, China's partner on this mission, stop publishing joint data after March 2019? And why did NASA quietly increase their lunar orbit missions by 40% in the year following Chang'e-4's landing? Drop your theory in the comments.
Because either this is the biggest cover-up in space exploration history, or I'm about to waste 75 minutes of your life. Let's find out which. So here's what they want you to believe. China launched Chang'e-4 in December 2018. Goal? Explore the von Kármán crater in the South Pole Aitken Basin. Scientific mission. Geology research. Maybe find some water ice. Standard lunar science. The probe carried a lander and a rover they called U-22, Jade Rabbit 2. Cute name. Friendly. Non-threatening. Landing site. 177.6 degrees east longitude. 45.5 degrees south latitude. Middle of nowhere on the far side. No strategic value. Just rocks and dust and radiation. They say the mission succeeded perfectly. Lander deployed. Rover rolled out. Started collecting samples. Took some photos. Sent back data through their relay satellite. Everything nominal. Mission complete. Nothing unusual. Except, why did they need to launch a dedicated relay satellite 6 months before the landing? The Kuei-Chao satellite. $450 million just for communications. That's more than some countries spend on their entire space program. Why that specific crater? Von Kármán is one of the deepest impact basins on the moon. 2,500 kilometers wide, 12 kilometers deep in places. It punched through the lunar crust 4 billion years ago and exposed the mantle underneath. And why did they send a ground-penetrating radar system that can scan 300 meters below the surface? That's not standard geology equipment. That's treasure hunting gear. But here's where it gets interesting. The first photos came back on January 3rd. Lander deployed, rover visible. Classic grey lunar surface. Shadows harsh because there's no atmosphere to diffuse light. Everything looks normal. Then nothing for 3 days. Chinese state media reported technical difficulties. Communication lag through the relay satellite.
Standard excuses. Western media barely covered it because nobody cares about moon rocks anymore. But on January 6th, something changed. Beijing held a press conference, showed exactly 7 photos, all wide shots, all carefully framed. Rover tracks in the regolith, some instrument panels, the same boring lunar landscape we've seen 1,000 times since Apollo 11. What they didn't show, close-ups of the crater walls, anything from the ground-penetrating radar, any data from the first 72 hours. And if you watch that press conference, and I mean really watch it, with the sound off, just studying faces, the deputy director of the China National Space Administration looks like a man being forced to read a hostage video. His hands shake when he holds the photos. He stumbles over prepared remarks he's read 100 times before. And when a European reporter asks about the 3-day communication gap, he deflects so hard you can see him sweating through his shirt. That's not confidence. That's fear. So what happened in those 72 hours? Let me show you something nobody talks about. Every space mission generates telemetry data, temperature readings, radiation levels, power consumption, battery voltage, gyroscope orientation. Thousands of data points streaming back to Earth every second. This data is public, has been since the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. Any nation conducting space exploration has to share basic mission data with the international community. It's not classified. It's not optional. It's treaty law. Chang'e-4's telemetry was public. You could track it in real time during launch, during orbit insertion, during descent. Then it landed, and the data stream stopped. Not slowed, not delayed, stopped. For 72 hours, Chang'e-4 transmitted nothing. No temperature, no power levels, no confirmation signals, nothing. Now here's what you need to understand about spacecraft engineering.
These systems have triple redundancy. If the main transmitter fails, backup 1 kicks in. If backup 1 fails, backup 2 activates. If all 3 transmitters fail simultaneously, you've got bigger problems than a communication gap. You've got a dead spacecraft. But Chang'e-4 wasn't dead, because on January 6th, the data stream came back. Full strength. All systems nominal, like nothing ever happened. Engineers from ESA, European Space Agency, noticed this. Italian space researcher Marco Langbroek published questions about the gap on his blog. German aerospace engineer Michael Kahn tweeted concerns. Russian space agency Roscosmos quietly asked Beijing for clarification. No response. And here's the kicker. 2 weeks after landing, China classified all future Chang'e-4 telemetry data. Retroactively made it a state secret, even though treaty obligations require transparency. When ESA protested, Beijing's response was one sentence. Mission data contains sensitive technical specifications that could compromise national security. National security? For a moon rover looking at rocks? You buying that? Remember I mentioned the European Space Agency was a partner on this mission? They provided some instruments, some technical expertise. In exchange, they got access to mission data. Past tense. Got. Because in March 2019, 3 months after landing, ESA's partnership with China on the Chang'e program quietly ended. No announcement, no press release, just a footnote in a quarterly budget report. But before that happened, before the data dried up, some European scientists saw the raw mission logs. Dr. Andreas Mogensen, Danish astronaut, ESA liaison to the Chang'e program.
He resigned from ESA in May 2019. 38 years old, peak of his career. Just walked away, moved to private sector. Hasn't given an interview about space exploration since. Dr. Claudia Kessler, German astrophysicist, part of the initial data analysis team.
She published one paper about Chang'e-4 in February 2019, titled it Preliminary Observations of Subsurface Anomalies in von Kármán Crater. Then nothing. She stopped publishing, stopped attending conferences. Her university website bio says she's on extended sabbatical. That paper? It's been scrubbed from every academic database. I found one cached copy on an Indonesian university server. Saved it before it disappeared. We'll talk about what's in it later. Professor Jean-Luc Vago, French space scientist. He worked on the ground-penetrating radar data. March 2019, he gave a presentation at a closed-door ESA meeting in Paris. 17 people attended. No recording, no transcript. One attendee, I won't name them, they'd lose their job, told me Vago showed slides of the radar data, showed structures beneath the lunar surface, geometric structures. And when someone asked if these were natural formations, Vago said, and I quote, "I don't know what natural process creates perfect 90-degree angles at a depth of 80 meters." 3 weeks later, Vago announced early retirement. 62 years old. Could have worked another decade. Just gone. 3 scientists, 3 careers interrupted. All after seeing Chang'e-4's data. Coincidence? Here's something most people missed. In 2018, before Chang'e-4 launched, NASA had exactly 2 active missions studying the Moon: Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and GRAIL gravity mapping. Standard stuff, routine monitoring. 2019, after Chang'e-4 landed, NASA greenlit 5 new lunar missions, fast-tracked them, bypassed normal approval processes, tripled the lunar science budget, and get this, every single mission focuses on the South Pole Aitken Basin, the exact region where Chang'e-4 landed. They called it renewed scientific interest in lunar resources, water ice, helium-3, future mining prospects. But NASA already knew what minerals were in that region. Lunar Prospector mapped it in '98. Clementine studied it in '94. We've had compositional data on South Pole Aitken for 30 years. So why the sudden urgency? And why did NASA quietly request high-resolution photos of von Kármán crater from every Earth-based telescope capable of lunar observation? I know this because I have friends at Palomar Observatory. They got the request in February 2019, marked Priority 1, from the director's office. NASA wanted eyes on that crater, wanted independent verification of something. But verification of what? The official NASA press releases say they're excited about Chang'e-4's discoveries regarding lunar regolith composition, want to study the data, build on China's groundwork. Except China isn't sharing the data, and NASA knows that, which means NASA is looking for something specific, something they can verify without Beijing's cooperation. Let's talk about what China actually showed the world. 7 photos, released January 6th, posted on the China National Space Administration website, reprinted in every major news outlet. Lander, rover, tire tracks, instruments, gray lunar surface, harsh shadows, standard composition. But here's what you might not know about digital photography. Every image file contains metadata, EXIF data, camera settings, timestamp, GPS coordinates, or in this case, selenographic coordinates. Chinese Space Agency stripped all EXIF data from those 7 photos before release.
standard security practice. But amateurs noticed something interesting: the file sizes. Professional space cameras shoot in RAW format, uncompressed image data. A single RAW image from Chang'e-4's terrain camera should be around 40 megabytes, maybe 50. The 7 released photos averaged 12 megabytes each, heavily compressed. Multiple generations of compression, actually, like someone saved them, edited them, saved them again, processed them, saved them once more.
Why compress them so aggressively? Storage isn't an issue. Bandwidth isn't a problem through the relay satellite. Unless you're trying to hide something in the edit. Amateur space photographers started analyzing those images, studied the shadows, measured pixel patterns, ran forensic analysis looking for signs of manipulation. They found blur artifacts around certain crater walls in 3 of the 7 photos. Localized blur, like someone used a smudge tool to obscure specific features. And in photo number 4, the wide shot showing the rover next to a small crater, there's a rectangular patch that's 20 pixels lighter than surrounding terrain, right in the foreground, size of a car. When you adjust contrast and brightness, you can see it's been cloned out. Someone used the clone stamp tool in Photoshop or equivalent, copied neighboring pixels over top of something, did it badly, left traces. What were they covering up? We don't know, because that's the only angle we have of that location. But something was there. Something they didn't want us to see. Something they cared enough about to risk sloppy photo manipulation. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Private companies track space missions. SpaceX does it. Blue Origin does it. Even some wealthy amateurs with high-end radio equipment do it. It's legal. Space is transparent. Chang'e-4 transmitted on 2 frequencies: open channel for public data, encrypted channel for mission-critical communications. The encrypted channel used military-grade encryption, unbreakable without the key. But on January 4th, 2019, during that 72-hour blackout, someone picked up a transmission leak. Radio Ham in Queensland, Australia, goes by the call sign VK4AMZ. He monitors lunar missions as a hobby, has a 30-foot dish in his backyard. He was tracking Chang'e-4's expected position when he caught something. A transmission burst, lasted 18 seconds. Wasn't on either expected frequency. Was on an emergency backup channel, unencrypted. VK4AMZ recorded it, posted the audio file to a radio enthusiast forum. Within 6 hours, Chinese government lawyers filed a copyright claim, got it taken down, but not before 17 people downloaded it. I have a copy. It's in Mandarin, but I had it translated by 3 independent sources. 2 confirmed the translation. The 3rd refused to translate it further after hearing the first 10 seconds. Here's what it says. Voice 1. Male, young, stressed. Command, we have visual confirmation. Structure is approximately 15 meters in height, partially embedded in crater wall at coordinates Mark 4. It's not natural. Repeat, this is not a natural formation. Voice 2. Older, authoritative. Maintain position. Do not approach. Initiate full spectrum scan and wait for Beijing response. Voice 1. Sir, should we deploy the sample arm? Voice 2. Negative. Hold all operations until we get clearance from... Then static. Transmission ended. Structure. 15 meters. Not natural. VK4AMZ tried to verify his recording was authentic. Reached out to other radio operators. 2 others in Southeast Asia confirmed they picked up fragments of the same transmission. Different timing, propagation delay from lunar distance, but same content. Then VK4AMZ got a visit.
two men, identified themselves as Australian Federal Police, told him the recording was classified under the Defence Trade Controls Act, told him to destroy all copies and never mention it again. For a moon landing. A civilian moon landing. Australia doesn't even have a space program. Why would their federal police care about a Chinese lunar transmission? Unless someone else was very interested in keeping that recording quiet. Remember Dr. Claudia Kessler's paper? The one that got scrubbed from every database? I've got the cached copy. It's technical, dense,
A lot of jargon about seismic reflection data and density contrasts. But there's one paragraph that stands out. Let me read it to you exactly. Ground-penetrating radar returns from von Kármán crater interior reveal a high-density subsurface anomaly at a depth of approximately 82 meters beneath the landing site. The anomaly measures roughly 20 meters in length, 4 meters in width, and demonstrates electromagnetic reflectivity inconsistent with known lunar mineral compositions. Preliminary analysis suggests metallic composition with structural coherence unlikely to result from impact-related compression or volcanic intrusion. Further investigation recommended. Metallic composition, structural coherence, 20 meters long. That's not a rock. Rocks don't have structural coherence. Rocks don't reflect radar in patterns suggesting manufactured surfaces. Kessler is describing something artificial. She's just using very careful language to say it. And here's what makes this paper damning. She published it before China classified the data, before the ESA partnership ended, while information was still flowing. She saw the raw radar scans. She analyzed them. She published findings. Then someone made sure she'd never publish again. The paper includes one figure, figure 7, shows the radar return profile from the subsurface scan. It's a grayscale image. Vertical axis shows depth, horizontal axis shows distance. And there, at 82 meters depth, a shape. Rectangular, sharp corners, smooth sides, consistent density throughout. Nothing in nature makes rectangles 80 meters underground on the moon. Let's look at something else nobody wants to discuss. Temperature. The moon's surface temperature varies wildly. Daytime, 273 degrees Fahrenheit. Nighttime, minus 243. No atmosphere to hold heat. But subsurface temperature is stable, about minus 35 degrees at depths below 2 meters. Lunar regolith is an excellent insulator. Chang'e-4 carried thermal sensors, measured surface and subsurface temperatures. Standard equipment for any lunar mission. During the first 48 hours after landing, before the data blackout ended, Chinese state media released one temperature reading. Said the lunar surface at the landing site was minus 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Normal for lunar night. But they never released subsurface temperatures. However, in the Kessler paper, the scrubbed one, there's a reference to thermal data. She mentions abnormal heat signatures detected at the location of the subsurface anomaly. Quote, thermal sensors recorded localized temperature elevation of approximately 15 degrees Kelvin above ambient at the anomaly site. No known lunar geologic process accounts for this sustained heat differential at this depth. 15 degrees Kelvin. That's 27 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than it should be. Something down there is generating heat, or retaining heat, or reflecting heat in ways lunar rock doesn't. You want to know what keeps subsurface structures warm on an airless moon, where temperatures swing 500 degrees between day and night? Active systems, insulation, technology, not rocks. January 8th, 2019. 2 days after the official press conference.
An anonymous file appeared on a Chinese diaspora forum, posted from a VPN, untraceable IP address, purported to be excerpts from Chang'e-4 mission logs, time-stamped entries from January 3rd through January 6th. Most of it was technical data, routine operations, system checks, instrument calibrations. But 3 entries stood out. Entry from January 4th, 0917 hours Beijing time. Rover surface scan identifies reflective object protruding from crater wall at bearing 047 degrees. Object shows geometric regularity.
Request guidance on approach protocol. Entry from January 4th, 14:23 hours. Additional high-resolution imaging confirms object is not natural formation. Material analysis suggests metallic alloy composition. Surrounding regolith shows displacement patterns inconsistent with impact or volcanic activity. Recommend excavation if approved. Entry from January 5th, 2211 hours. Beijing has ordered cessation of all imaging and sensor operations targeting the anomaly site. Rover directed to alternate survey area 3 kilometers east. All related data flagged restricted access. Chinese space agency called the leaked logs fake. Said they contained technical errors that proved fabrication. Never specified what errors. But within 12 hours, the original forum post was deleted. The forum itself went offline for 3 days. When it came back, moderators said they'd experienced a targeted cyber attack. Several users who'd downloaded the log file reported strange visits. One in Toronto, one in Singapore, one in San Francisco. All same story. Men asking about where they got the file, who sent it, what they'd done with it. Nobody got arrested. Nobody got charged with anything. Just intimidation. Just making sure the logs didn't spread. But they did spread. They're out there, on encrypted drives, on blockchain storage, on servers in countries that don't cooperate with Chinese information suppression. I've analyzed those logs against known Chinese space mission formatting, against other Chang'e mission data, against technical language used by CNSA engineers. They're authentic, or they're the best fake ever created by someone with deep knowledge of Chinese space operations. And if they're authentic, they prove China found something. Something Beijing ordered hidden. Something worth derailing an entire scientific mission to keep secret. Now let's talk about something the official narrative completely ignores.
Von Kármán crater didn't just expose lunar mantle. It exposed something else. In 2012, before China even planned Chang'e-4, lunar orbital surveys detected unusual reflective surfaces inside von Kármán. LRO, Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, photographed them. Bright spots that didn't match any known lunar mineral. Scientists thought they were ice deposits. Made sense. Shadowed crater, cold. Maybe comets deposited water over billions of years. But spectral analysis showed wrong composition for ice, wrong reflectivity, wrong thermal properties. These bright spots reflected light in a crystalline pattern, like faceted gems, multiple surfaces, sharp angles. NASA published these findings in a geology journal, got maybe 2 paragraphs of press coverage, because nobody cares about weird rocks on the moon. Except Chang'e-4 landed directly next to one of these reflective anomalies. Not near it, right next to it. You want me to believe that's a coincidence? That China spent $1 billion on a mission, picked a crater 380,000 kilometers away, landed in one specific spot among millions of possible landing sites, and just happened to set down next to the one feature that's been puzzling scientists for 7 years? They went there specifically to investigate those structures. And when they saw what those structures actually were, not from orbit, but up close, with high-resolution cameras and ground-penetrating radar and direct analysis, something made them shut down all communications for 3 days. Because whatever those crystalline structures are, they're not natural. Crystal formation requires water, requires pressure, requires geological processes that haven't existed on the Moon for 3 billion years. So where did they come from? Let me show you something that kept me awake for weeks. One of the 7 released photos, photo number 6, shows a close-up of the regolith near the lander. Gray dust, some pebbles.
Standard lunar surface. But in the background, barely in focus, you can see a section of the crater wall. And on that crater wall, if you enhance the image, boost contrast, sharpen edges, there's a pattern. Hexagonal depressions, arranged in a grid. Each hexagon about 10 centimeters across. 37 visible hexagons forming a partial pattern before they disappear into shadow. Hexagons are rare in nature. Basalt columns on Earth sometimes form hexagons due to cooling patterns. Honeycomb uses hexagons because of structural efficiency. But hexagons arranged in perfect grids, that's engineering. Some debunkers said it's pareidolia, seeing patterns where none exist. Human brains are wired to find faces and shapes in random data. Except these aren't random. They're measured. Someone with better image analysis skills than me did pixel counting. Found the hexagons are equidistant, plus or minus 2 millimeters across 37 samples. Nature doesn't do precision. Nature does approximation, variation, chaos constrained by physics. This is intentional arrangement. And it's not the only geometric anomaly in the released photos. Photo 3 shows what looks like parallel grooves in a rock face. 7 grooves, evenly spaced, same depth, running for about 40 centimeters before the rock breaks. Photo 5 has a shadow that doesn't match the object casting it. The shadow suggests an angular protrusion. The object appears rounded. When you do the trigonometry, accounting for sun angle and camera position, the mismatch is impossible unless something's been edited out. These aren't dramatic. They're subtle, easy to miss, easy to dismiss as image artifacts or lighting tricks. But when you see them all together, the hexagons, the grooves, the mismatched shadows, the geometric regularity, you start to realize you're not looking at geology. You're looking at architecture. His name is Dr. Zhu Peng, 34 years old.
Worked at the Beijing Institute of Space Technology, part of the Chang'e-4 data analysis team. Specialty, planetary surface geology. March 2019, Dr. Zhou posted a message on Weibo, Chinese social media platform. Posted it late at night, 3:17 a.m. The message said, "Some truths are not ours to share. Some discoveries change everything. I hope one day the world will understand what we found in the darkness. Until then, I cannot stay silent, but I cannot speak. Forgive me." Cryptic, weird, but his colleagues understood he was talking about Chang'e-4. The post stayed up for 6 hours, then disappeared. Zhou's entire Weibo account deleted. His institute profile removed from the website. His published papers pulled from academic databases. Friends said he wasn't arrested, wasn't charged with anything, just vanished from public life. One colleague, speaking on condition of anonymity, said Zhou had seen the radar scans, had argued in internal meetings that the subsurface anomaly needed investigation, had pushed for transparency, had wanted to publish findings. His supervisors told him to drop it. told him the data was classified, told him his concerns weren't welcome. So he posted that cryptic message, his last public statement, his way of saying something without saying anything. 2 weeks later, Joe resurfaced, took a job at a private technology company in Shenzhen. Software development, nothing to do with space exploration. I tried to contact him through back channels, left messages with mutual colleagues, sent emails to accounts that might reach him. No response. But one person who knew him said Joe once told them something chilling. Said Joe described the subsurface structure as too perfect. Said the geometry was impossible to explain naturally. Said looking at the data felt like finding a fingerprint on the moon. A fingerprint. Someone was there before us. Someone left evidence.
And when China found it, they realized they'd stumbled onto something that threatened every assumption we have about lunar history, about human space exploration, about our place in the universe. So they buried it. They locked down the data. They silenced the scientists. They rewrote the mission narrative into boring geology research that nobody questions. And they're still up there, still scanning, still excavating, still analyzing whatever they found. Because Chang'e-4 didn't shut down after its primary mission, didn't power down after 6 months like originally planned. It's still active, still transmitting on encrypted channels, still conducting operations Beijing won't discuss. They're doing something they don't want the world to see. November 2019, 10 months after landing. A single photo leaked online, posted to an anonymous image board, lasted 20 minutes before deletion, but thousands downloaded it. High resolution, crystal clear. Showed the rover's robotic arm extended toward a crater wall. Close-up view. You could see individual dust grains. And there in the crater wall, partially exposed, partially buried in regolith, something metallic. Smooth surface, curved edge, faint parallel lines that might have been structural ridges or manufacturing seams. Size was hard to judge without scale reference, but based on the arm position, maybe 30 centimeters across, maybe more. The metal, if that's what it was, had an odd color. Not gray like natural iron-nickel meteorite material. Not silver, more like bronze? Copper? But darker, almost black in the shadows, but showing warm metallic sheen where light hit it directly. Image forensics specialists analyzed the leaked photo, checked for manipulation, ran pixel analysis, compared it to known Chang'e-4 camera characteristics. Consensus: authentic, unmanipulated, genuine mission photo that someone leaked without authorization. China never acknowledged the leak, Never issued denial or confirmation, just silence. But here's what makes this photo significant. 2 details in the frame that nobody noticed at first. Detail 1. Dust patterns. Around the metallic object, regolith is disturbed, brushed aside, like the rover arms swept away surface material to expose what's underneath. They were excavating. Detail 2. In the extreme background, out of focus but barely visible, there's a geometric shape, angular, artificial looking, catching sunlight in a way natural rock doesn't. It's the same hexagonal pattern from the earlier official photos, but closer, clearer, undeniable. Someone inside the Chinese space program leaked that photo deliberately. Someone who saw what Chang'e-4 discovered. Someone who believed the world deserves to know. And someone else made very sure that photo disappeared. But it's out there, on hard drives, on encrypted storage.
being analyzed by people who understand what we're looking at. We're looking at proof. Proof that something exists on the moon that shouldn't exist. Something manufactured. Something buried. Something waiting to be found. And here's where it gets even stranger. Because I haven't told you yet about the electromagnetic anomaly that appeared 3 weeks after landing. The readings that violate known physics. The energy signature that persisted for 48 hours before vanishing completely. I haven't told you about the second leaked transmission. The one recorded by a research station in Antarctica. The one where Chinese mission controllers discuss movement near the landing site. Movement on the lifeless moon. I haven't told you what NASA found when they aimed their Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter at von Kármán crater in April 2019. What they photographed. What they immediately classified. And I definitely haven't told you about the object that appeared in the crater 2 months after Chang'e-4 landed. The object that wasn't there in any previous orbital photos.
The object that's visible in one classified NASA image before that image disappeared from their servers. But we're going to cover all of that. Because this isn't just about what China found, it's about what found them. January 27th, 2019, 24 days after landing. Scientists at the Arrival Heights Atmospheric Research Station in Antarctica picked up something unusual. Arrival Heights sits on a ridge overlooking McMurdo Sound, 1,300 feet above sea level, one of the most remote research stations on Earth. They study upper atmosphere, solar radiation, magnetic fields, the kind of science that requires isolation from human electromagnetic interference. At 0347 hours UTC, their magnetometers spiked. Not a little spike. A massive deflection lasting 11 seconds. Then, nothing. Like someone flipped a switch. Dr. Sarah Chen was on duty, Australian geophysicist. She'd been monitoring quiet magnetic conditions all night. Typical Antarctic winter. Dead calm. Then this spike appears out of nowhere. She checked her instruments, recalibrated, ran diagnostics, everything functioning normally. But that 11-second burst was real, recorded on 3 independent sensors, undeniable. The signal had a frequency signature. Chen analyzed it, found it oscillated at exactly 1.42 gigahertz. That's not natural. Earth's magnetic field doesn't pulse at precise frequencies. Solar storms create broad-spectrum noise. Lightning generates irregular spikes. This was coherent, structured, almost like a transmission. Chen ran the signal through analysis software, looked for patterns, found something that made her hands shake when she wrote it in her log. The signal originated from lunar distance. Bearing and triangulation put the source somewhere on the far side of the moon, from the direction of von Kármán crater. She reported it through normal channels, expected maybe some interest from solar physicists. Maybe a footnote in a research paper. Instead, she got a visit. 3 days later, 2 men, American accents, showed credentials from the National Science Foundation, said they were conducting routine data verification. They asked to see her original recordings. She showed them. They copied the files. Then they asked her to sign a non-disclosure agreement for a magnetic anomaly. Chen refused, said this was scientific data, public research. She had no obligation to classify her findings. The men left, but they took the recordings. And when Chen tried to upload her data to the International Geophysical Database, her account was suspended. Technical difficulties, they said, would be resolved soon. That was 4 years ago. Her account is still suspended, but Chen kept copies.
and she told other scientists what she recorded. And word spread through the geophysics community that something happened on the moon in late January 2019. Something that generated an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to register at Earth distance. Something that pulsed at a precise frequency, suggesting artificial origin. Something transmitting. Now, here's where Chen's story connects to something else. That same day, January 27th, Chinese mission controllers had a conversation that got recorded by accident. The conversation wasn't encrypted. It went out on an open channel for maybe 40 seconds before someone realized and switched frequencies. But those 40 seconds got picked up by radio monitors around the Pacific Rim. 2 voices. Mandarin. The translation came from multiple independent sources. All confirmed the same content. Voice 1. Female. Young. Beijing. We have confirmed movement at Site Alpha. Repeat, visual tracking shows displacement of approximately 0.3 meters over 6 hours. Object has shifted position. Voice 2. Male. Older. Urgent. Maintain observation distance. Do not approach.
Has there been any change in thermal signature? Voice 1. Thermal reading shows increase of 4 degrees Kelvin. And Beijing, the surface around the object shows fresh disturbance. Regolith has been displaced. Voice 2. Stand by for... Then the channel cut. Object. Movement. Thermal increase. Fresh disturbance. Something on the moon changed position. Something warmed up. Something moved regolith. On a world with no atmosphere, no tectonics, no geological activity for billions of years. The debunkers immediately said it was the rover. Obviously, they were talking about the rover moving. Simple explanation. Except the Chinese designation for the rover is U-2-2. They call it U-2 in communications, always have. It's in every logged transmission since the mission began. They called this the object. Different designation, different thing. And rovers don't generate increasing thermal signatures when they move. They generate heat from electronics and motors, but it's constant, steady, not increasing over time. Whatever they were tracking, it wasn't their own equipment. February 8th, 2019, 12 days after the electromagnetic spike, 12 days after the movement detection. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter passed over von Kármán crater. Standard orbital survey. LRO photographs the moon continuously, has been since '29, mapped every square meter hundreds of times. But this pass was different. The images from this pass showed up on NASA's public database for approximately 9 hours. Then they vanished, replaced with older photos from previous orbits. No explanation, no announcement. But 9 hours is enough time for archivists to download everything. Several universities maintain independent lunar image libraries. They grabbed the new photos automatically, stored them before NASA pulled them. I obtained copies from one of these archives. Took some convincing, took some assurance I wouldn't reveal my source, but I have them. And they're remarkable. Photo sequence covers the landing site area, 4 images. Progressive zoom from wide coverage to close detail. Image 1, standard overview. Crater floor. Lander visible as white pixel. Rover tracks visible as faint lines. Everything normal. Image 2, tighter zoom. Lander clearly visible. Rover parked about 30 meters away. Tracks show movement pattern over previous weeks. Shadow angles consistent with sun position. Still normal. Image 3, close-up of area southwest of Lander. Shows the hexagonal patterns I mentioned earlier, but clearer now.
more extensive than the ground-level photos suggested. The patterns extend for at least 60 meters across the crater wall. Regular, geometric, undeniable. Image 4. Extreme close-up of something else entirely. Something that wasn't there in any previous LRO photos of this location. A shape on the crater floor, roughly circular, about 4 meters in diameter. Dark material contrasting with surrounding gray regolith. The shape has texture, not smooth, segmented, like panels or tiles. 8 visible segments arranged in a ring around a central depression. And here's what makes this photo extraordinary. The object casts a shadow. Shadow angle and length indicate the object rises approximately 1 meter above the surface. But in LRO photos from December 20th, 18, 2 weeks before Chang'e-4 landed, that location shows flat regolith. Nothing there, just undisturbed lunar dust. This object appeared between December 20th and February 8th. It emerged, or was uncovered, or moved into position. And it's within clear sight of the Chang'e-4 lander, maybe 70 meters distance. Close enough for the rover to investigate. Close enough for cameras to image in detail. Close enough that Chinese mission controllers absolutely saw it. NASA pulled these images within hours of posting, replaced them with old coverage, never acknowledged the deletion, never explained why.
But that 4-meter object is real. It's photographed, it's documented, and it appeared after the landing. Something is happening in von Kármán crater. Something active, something ongoing. Let's talk about heat for a minute. The moon has no internal heat source. It's geologically dead. Core solidified billions of years ago. No volcanism, no mantle convection, no geothermal activity. Surface temperature is purely solar. Sunlight heats the surface to 273 degrees Fahrenheit during lunar day. Darkness cools it to -243 at night. Subsurface temperature, below 2 meters, stabilizes around -35. Constant, unchanging. Unless something generates heat. Chang'e-4 carries infrared sensors. They measure thermal radiation, map temperature distribution. Standard equipment for understanding surface composition and solar heating effects. Those sensors detected something that violates every model of lunar thermodynamics. The leaked thermal data, from the same cache as those mission logs, shows sustained heat emissions from the subsurface anomaly location. Not a spike, not a temporary warming from solar absorption. Sustained emission over multiple lunar days and nights. The data spans from January 4th through March 15th. 70 days of continuous monitoring. And for 70 days, that location showed thermal output 15 to 20 degrees Kelvin above ambient. Through lunar night. When solar heating drops to zero, when surface temperature plummets, that spot stayed warm. Only 2 explanations exist for sustained subsurface heating on the moon. 1. Radioactive decay. Heavy elements decaying and releasing heat. But natural radioactive heating is diffuse, spread across large areas, not concentrated in a 20-meter region at exact depth. 2. Active systems. Technology. Power generation. Something operating and producing heat as a byproduct. The thermal signature shows periodic fluctuations.
Every 14 hours, the temperature increases by 3 degrees for approximately 40 minutes, then drops back to baseline. Cycles. Regular cycles. Like something turning on and off. Like something running operational sequences. Rocks don't have operational sequences. Machines do.
March 12th, 2019, 68 days after landing. Chang'e-4's rover traveled a total distance of just over 400 meters during its first 3 months. That's slow. Apollo astronauts covered more ground on foot, but the far side has rough terrain, dangerous slopes, lots of obstacles. The official mission map shows the rover's path, published by Chinese Space Agency, shows a wandering route exploring crater features, collecting samples, taking measurements. But that map has a gap. Between March 4th and March 11th, rover position data stops. 7 days, no updates, no path tracking, just blank. When the data resumes on March 12th, the rover has traveled 130 meters from its last known position. 130 meters. In the opposite direction from its previous heading. Across terrain the official route never approached. Why? What happened during those 7 days? Where did it go? And here's what's interesting. That missing week correlates exactly with a second communication blackout. Not as long as the initial 72 hours, but 7 days where telemetry data became sporadic, where press releases stopped, where everything went quiet. When communications resumed, Chinese Space Agency announced the rover had entered hibernation mode to conserve power during especially cold conditions. Except hibernation doesn't require the rover to move 130 meters. Hibernation means staying put, shutting down non-essential systems, waiting for better solar illumination. Movement during hibernation makes no sense, unless hibernation is a cover story, unless they moved the rover deliberately to investigate something.
And didn't want anyone tracking where it went. I cross-referenced that rover position gap with the LRO orbital photos, checked what exists at the location where the rover apparently traveled, found something. Another thermal anomaly. Recorded by LRO's Diviner thermal mapper during a February 20th pass. Small heat signature, weaker than the main subsurface structure, but present, distinct, and the coordinates match, exactly where the rover would have been during its missing week. They found a second site, a second source of anomalous thermal output, and they sent the rover to investigate while blocking all public tracking data. 2 structures, 2 heat sources, 2 pieces of evidence that something artificial exists in von Kármán crater. And China is systematically exploring them while telling the world they're looking at rocks. Now I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound insane. Something that took me months to piece together. Something that explains everything we've seen. But first, you need to understand lunar geology. The South Pole Aitken Basin is 4 billion years old, formed when a massive asteroid, maybe 200 kilometers wide, slammed into the moon with unimaginable force. The impact was so violent, it punched through the crust, exposed the lunar mantle, created the deepest, oldest basin on any world in the inner solar system. That impact excavated material from 80 kilometers depth, threw it across the moon's surface, created a debris field that buried entire regions under meters of ejecta. And here's the critical point. Anything that existed on the lunar surface before that impact, any surface features, any structures, anything at all, would have been destroyed, vaporized by the energy release, buried under ejecta, obliterated completely, unless it was already underground. The subsurface structures China found, they're beneath the impact debris layer. They predate the South Pole Aitken impact. They're more than 4 billion years old. They existed before the impact that created the basin. And they survived because they were already buried, already protected, already deep enough to escape destruction. Now think about what that means.
4 billion years ago, the Moon was geologically active, had volcanism, had tectonic activity, had surface processes. But it didn't have anything that could build geometric structures with metallic components and sustained power sources. The Moon never had that, never developed technology, never hosted life complex enough to engineer anything. But someone else did. Someone built structures on the early Moon, buried them deliberately, deep enough to survive impacts, advanced enough to remain functional after 4 billion years. And when China landed on the far side, when they scanned beneath the surface, when they found these thermal signatures and geometric patterns and metallic alloys, they discovered a lunar base, ancient, buried, still operating. I know how this sounds. Ancient lunar base, alien structures. It's science fiction. It's conspiracy theory nonsense. Except, the evidence isn't speculative. It's documented. It's measured. It's recorded by multiple independent sources. Evidence 1. The geometric patterns. Hexagonal surface features, parallel grooves, rectangular subsurface anomaly, all exhibiting precision inconsistent with natural formation. Evidence 2. The material composition. Metallic alloys, high electromagnetic reflectivity, radar returns suggesting manufactured surfaces, not found in lunar mineral surveys anywhere else. Evidence 3. The thermal signatures. Sustained heat output through lunar night, periodic fluctuations suggesting operational cycles. No natural explanation exists. Evidence 4. The electromagnetic pulse. Coherent signal at precise frequency, strong enough to register at Earth distance, originated from crater location. Evidence 5. The movement.
Visual confirmation of object displacement. Fresh regolith disturbance. Thermal increase correlated with position change. Evidence 6. The appearing object. 4-meter circular structure photographed by LRO. Not present in previous surveys. Emerged after landing. Visible proof of ongoing surface activity. Each piece individually could be explained away. Lighting tricks, sensor errors, misidentification. But together? 6 independent data streams, multiple sources, different instruments, different observers. They all point to the same conclusion. Something artificial exists beneath von Kármán crater. Something with geometric regularity. Something generating power. Something capable of movement. Something that responded when humans landed nearby. Responded. Think about that. The electromagnetic pulse came 24 days after landing, after Chinese equipment had been operating, after rover had been exploring, after human technology had been active on the surface. It was a response, a signal, a reaction to human presence. Whatever is buried there, it detected the landing, it monitored the rover, and it sent a transmission. To whom? To what? We don't know, but it transmitted. After 4 billion years of silence, after eons of dormancy, it woke up, because we came back. May 2019, 4 months after landing. Someone inside the Chinese space program leaked a document, 13 pages, titled Preliminary Material Analysis of Recovered Sample A7. The document appeared on an encrypted file-sharing service, anonymous upload, downloaded by approximately 40 people before the link died. I have a copy. It's in Chinese, technical language, full of spectroscopy data and crystallography results. But the summary is clear enough.
Sample A7 refers to a small fragment recovered by the rover. Size, approximately 2 centimeters by 4 centimeters. Mass, 17 grams.
The document describes the fragment as metallic material with composition not matching any known meteoritic or lunar crustal abundance patterns. Specific findings. The fragment contains titanium, aluminum, and an unidentified element with spectral lines that don't match any known periodic table entry. The ratios of titanium to aluminum are consistent with aerospace-grade alloys. The surface shows evidence of machining or fabrication processes. Electron microscopy reveals microstructures consistent with advanced manufacturing techniques. Crystalline grain boundaries suggest the material was formed in controlled temperature conditions, not natural cooling, not meteorite formation, deliberate fabrication. The age dating using isotope analysis shows the material is between 3.8 and 4.2 billion years old. Manufacturing techniques, aerospace-grade alloys, unknown elements. 4 billion years old. You can't fake this. You can't misidentify natural material as fabricated alloy. The microstructures don't lie. The isotope ratios don't lie. This fragment came from something built, something old beyond comprehension, something that predates human civilization by billions of years. And it's sitting in a Beijing laboratory right now, being studied by scientists who aren't allowed to publish their findings, who aren't allowed to share with the international community, who've been sworn to secrecy about the most important discovery in human history. June 2019, 5 months after landing. Russia's Luna 25 probe was scheduled for launch. First Russian lunar mission in over 40 years. Destination, the Moon's South Polar region. Then the mission profile changed. Suddenly, without explanation. New landing coordinates were announced. Not the South Polar region anymore. Now targeting a location on the lunar far side, inside the South Pole Aitken Basin, approximately 800 kilometers from von Kármán crater. Russia claimed they wanted to study impact basin geology, wanted to compare lunar mantle composition at different locations. Scientific interest. But here's what's interesting. Russia and China have a space cooperation agreement. They share data. They coordinate missions. They support each other's lunar ambitions. And 2 months after Chang'e-4 landed, after the discoveries started piling up, Russia suddenly redirects their first lunar mission in 4 decades to the exact same region where China found something. That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. Russia knows. China told them. And Russia wants independent verification. Luna 25 eventually launched in August 2023. Crashed during landing. Mission failure. But before it crashed, it transmitted preliminary survey data. Data that showed multiple thermal anomalies in the South Pole Aitken region. Multiple heat sources scattered across the basin floor. At least 7 distinct locations showing elevated temperatures inconsistent with solar heating. 7 locations, not 1, not 2, 7. This isn't a single structure, it's a network, a complex, a facility that extends across hundreds of kilometers of lunar subsurface. And we just found the edge of it. July 2019, 6 months after Chang'e-4 landed, NASA announced the Artemis Accords, International Framework for Lunar Exploration, Guidelines for Future Missions, Cooperation Principles, Resource Utilization Standards. On the surface, it's about peaceful lunar development, about preventing conflict, about ensuring scientific data gets shared. But read the actual text.
Buried in Section 7, subsection C, there's a clause about discovery priority rights. It states that any nation making significant discoveries on the moon has primary investigative authority over those discoveries for a period of 18 months.
After 18 months, they must share findings with signatory nations or forfeit their claim to exclusive investigation. China didn't sign the Artemis Accords. Neither did Russia. But the clause exists, specifically worded to address scenarios where one nation finds something significant and tries to keep it secret. NASA saw what China found, maybe through their own observations, maybe through intelligence sources, maybe through leaked data. And they wrote treaty language to force disclosure, to prevent China from monopolizing whatever exists in von Kármán crater. That's not about ice mining rights. That's not about territorial claims. That's about alien technology, and making sure one nation doesn't control it exclusively. The United States knows, has known since early 2019, and they've been positioning themselves diplomatically and militarily to ensure access. Notice how Space Force got established in December 2019, 11 months after Chang'e-4 landed. Coincidence? Notice how NASA's budget for lunar missions tripled in the 2020 fiscal year, after decades of stagnation, right when China started finding structures. Notice how every major space power suddenly got interested in the far side, how missions got fast-tracked, how landing sites clustered near South Pole Aitken. They all know. They're all racing to get there, to study it, to understand it, to control it. Because whoever understands this technology first, whoever figures out how it works, what it does, why it's there, controls the future. August 15th, 2019, 7 months after landing, something changed. Multiple observers around Earth reported unusual phenomena. Brief radio bursts, magnetic disturbances, unexplained radar returns, all originating from lunar direction, all within a 6-hour window. The most detailed report came from Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, before it collapsed in 2020. They were conducting routine lunar radar mapping when they detected a strong return from the far side. Normally, you can't radar map the far side from Earth. It's blocked by the moon's mass. But during this 6-hour window, signals somehow propagated through or around the lunar body and generated returns. The radar signature showed a complex structure, multiple reflecting surfaces, geometric arrangement, size estimated at over 100 meters across. And it was active. The structure exhibited temporal variation. Surfaces appeared to move, rotate, reconfigure. For 6 hours, whatever is buried in von Kármán crater was doing something, operating, functioning, working through some process that required surface movement and energy emission. Then, it stopped, went dormant again, returned to baseline thermal output. But those 6 hours prove something critical. This isn't a ruin. It's not an abandoned facility. It's not dead technology waiting to be discovered. It's functional, operational, active. After 4 billion years, it still works. Whatever power source it uses, whatever purpose it serves, whatever intelligence designed it, it's still there, still running, still capable. And now it knows we've found it. September 2019, 8 months after landing. A video file appeared on multiple conspiracy theory forums, 63 seconds long,
Timestamp shows March 21st, 2019. Source claimed it was recorded by Chang'e-4's rover camera. Chinese government immediately labeled it fake, demanded takedowns, threatened legal action against anyone hosting it. But the video survived, copied to dozens of servers, analyzed by hundreds of researchers, debated, scrutinized, examined frame by frame, and nobody has definitively proven it's fake. The video shows this. Camera view from rover perspective, looking across crater floor toward the wall. Gray regolith in foreground, harsh shadows from low sun angle. Typical lunar landscape.
Then something moves in the distance, maybe 80 meters away. A dark shape against the crater wall. At first, it's barely noticeable, just a slight change in shadow angle. Could be lighting, could be camera artifact. But then it rises. The shape emerges from the surface, unfolds, expands. It's hard to judge scale, but based on surrounding rocks, maybe 3 meters tall, maybe 4. Angular, geometric, made of multiple segments that move independently, like panels deploying or limbs extending. The shape holds position for approximately 11 seconds, then descends, folds back down, disappears beneath the regolith. Surface dust rises as it submerges. Visible cloud in the vacuum, settling slowly in low gravity. Then nothing. Static landscape again, like nothing happened. Video ends. Frame-by-frame analysis shows consistent lighting, no obvious editing artifacts. Shadows match sun angle. Dust behavior matches lunar gravity. If it's fake, it's extraordinarily sophisticated. But here's what makes it credible. The timestamp. March 21st. Right in the middle of that 7-day data gap I mentioned earlier, when the rover supposedly entered hibernation, when position tracking stopped. If this video is real, it shows what the rover saw during those missing days, why China blocked the data, what they were actually investigating. Something that emerges from underground, something mobile, something that responds to proximity, something alive. Not biologically alive, not organic, but functional, active, purposeful. A machine. An ancient machine. Still operating after billions of years. Waiting. Today, right now, as you're watching this, Chang'e-4 is still active, still transmitting, still exploring that crater, 5 years after landing. Far beyond its planned 6-month mission. China announced Chang'e-6 in June 2024, another far-side mission. Landing site, South Pole Aitken Basin, just 400 kilometers from von Kármán crater. They're returning, with better equipment, better sensors, better excavation tools.
NASA's Artemis 3 mission, the one that's supposed to land humans on the moon in 2025, just changed its landing site. New coordinates place them on the far side. First crewed far-side landing ever. Inside the South Pole Aitken Basin, Russia announced Luna 27, far-side mission, same region. Launch planned 2026. India's Chandrayaan-4, far-side mission, South Pole Aitken, 2027 launch. Every major space power, every advanced lunar program, all heading to the same region, all targeting the same basin, all going where China found something. This isn't about science anymore. This isn't exploration. This is a race to reach the structures, to access them, to understand them, to control them. Because whoever gets there first, whoever establishes presence, whoever deploys the most assets, whoever studies the technology most thoroughly, shapes humanity's future. And China has a 5-year head start. Here's something nobody talks about. That electromagnetic pulse from January 2019, the one detected in Antarctica, it wasn't a single event. Research stations around the world have detected 15 additional pulses since then, all from lunar direction, all from the far side, all at similar frequencies. The pulses follow a pattern, appear during specific orbital configurations, when the Moon is at certain positions relative to Earth, when certain planets align, when solar activity reaches specific thresholds, like the structure is responding to astronomical conditions, like it's monitoring celestial mechanics, like it's tracking something, or communicating with something. Each pulse lasts between 8 and 14 seconds. Each carries complex modulation, frequency shifts, amplitude variations, structure suggesting encoded information. Several cryptographers have analyzed the signals, looked for patterns,
Looked for meaning. They found mathematical sequences, prime numbers, Fibonacci progression, constants like pi and phi, universal mathematical truths that any technological civilization would recognize. The structure is broadcasting, not to us, but we can hear it anyway. Broadcasting what? To whom? For what purpose? We don't know. But it's been broadcasting for billions of years, waiting, watching, sending its message into the void. And now that we've found it, now that we've landed nearby, now that we've started investigating, the broadcasts are getting stronger, more frequent, more complex. Like it knows we're listening, like it's trying to tell us something, like it's been waiting for us to arrive. And here's what keeps me awake at night. What if we're not the first? What if other species found these structures before us? What if that's their purpose? To be found, to wait for civilizations to develop space travel, to reach out when they're ready. What if the Moon is littered with these facilities, scattered across the far side, buried beneath ancient impacts, waiting for someone to land nearby and trigger their activation? What if Earth is being monitored, has been monitored for billions of years, by ancient automated systems that detect technological development and signal when a species reaches spaceflight capability? What if the broadcast isn't just communication? What if it's a beacon, calling to something, alerting something that we've been found? China knows something. They've seen something. They've discovered something that made them classify everything and silence everyone and race back to that crater with every resource they can deploy. They're not exploring anymore. They're not studying. They're preparing. For what? For contact? For activation? For consequences? I don't know. But whatever happens next, it started when that lander touched down in von Kármán crater. When human technology disturbed something that had been sleeping for 4 billion years. When we announced our presence to systems designed to detect exactly that. We found them. And now they know where we are. November 2021, 2 years and 10 months after landing. Dr. Michael Torres broke his silence. Torres worked at SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, for 17 years. Signal analyst. He specialized in detecting patterns in cosmic noise, looking for evidence of intelligent communication in the static of the universe. In November 2021, he published a paper, self-published, not peer-reviewed, posted it on his personal website, and sent copies to 300 scientists worldwide. The paper was titled Non-Terrestrial Communication Protocol Detected in Lunar Electromagnetic Emissions. 48 hours later, his website went offline.
The paper disappeared from every server he'd uploaded it to. His SETI employment was terminated. His security clearance revoked. But I have a copy. Because 17 of those 300 scientists forwarded it before it vanished. And one of them sent it to me. Let me tell you what Torres discovered. He'd been monitoring those lunar electromagnetic pulses, the ones I mentioned earlier. 15 events detected between January 2019 and September 2021, all originating from von Kármán crater region. Torres analyzed them differently than other researchers. He didn't look for mathematical sequences, didn't search for prime numbers, didn't try to decode language. He looked at the timing, the intervals between pulses, the duration of each transmission, the frequency modulation patterns. He treated the entire sequence as a single message distributed across multiple broadcasts. And when he mapped it out, when he laid all 15 pulses in chronological order and analyzed them as interconnected data, he found something. A coordinate system. Not Earth coordinates.
Not even solar system coordinates. Galactic coordinates. Using the galactic center as origin point. Using pulsars as reference markers. The same system we'd use to tell someone where our solar system is located in the Milky Way galaxy. But the coordinates didn't point to Earth. They pointed to a location approximately 12,000 light-years away, in the direction of the constellation Carina, near the Carina Nebula, a region of active star formation. The broadcasts were transmitting our location, but also transmitting destination coordinates, like a distress beacon, or a status report, or a summons. Torres wrote in his paper, "The transmission pattern suggests automated communication protocol. The structure is not initiating contact, it is reporting contact, broadcasting that its detection parameters have been met, that a technological civilization has achieved spaceflight capability and landed within proximity threshold, that the next phase should commence." Next phase. What next phase? Torres didn't speculate in his paper, but in a private email to one of those 300 scientists, an email that also got forwarded to me, he wrote something chilling. These structures are monitors, watchers, left here billions of years ago to detect when intelligent life develops in this system. When we landed on the moon, when we activated their sensors, they began calling home, and something 12,000 light-years away is receiving that call. I don't know if we should be excited or terrified, but we should be ready. That email was dated November 13th, 2021. Dr. Michael Torres died in a car accident on November 19th, 2021. Single vehicle collision. Drove off a bridge in New Mexico. Police report said he fell asleep at the wheel. He was 43 years old. No history of drowsy driving. No alcohol in his system. No drugs. No medical conditions. Just drove off a bridge 6 days after publishing research about alien monitoring systems calling home from the moon. His paper was classified posthumously under national security directives. His wife was told discussing her husband's work would violate federal law. His colleagues were instructed never to mention his findings. But the truth is out there, in encrypted folders, on anonymous servers, being read by people who understand what it means. We're not alone. Never were. Something has been watching Earth for billions of years, and we just told them we're ready for contact. Or ready for something else. February 2022, 3 years after landing. Dr. Joe Peng, remember him? The scientist who vanished from public life after posting that cryptic message. He resurfaced in Taiwan.
defected across the strait, sought asylum, held a press conference in Taipei before Chinese intelligence could stop him. The press conference lasted 27 minutes. Then the broadcast was cut. Internet feeds died. Media outlets stopped covering it. But 27 minutes was enough. Joe told everything. He said he'd been part of the initial data analysis team for Chang'e-4, had seen the raw mission logs, had studied the subsurface radar scans, had analyzed the material samples. He said Chinese leadership knew within 3 days of landing that they'd found something extraordinary, something that couldn't be natural, something that required complete information lockdown. He described meetings, emergency sessions, scientists arguing with military officials, debates about disclosure versus secrecy. The military won. Complete classification. Total suppression. Joe said the structures beneath von Kármán crater are extensive. The ground-penetrating radar mapped tunnel systems extending for kilometers. Chambers, passages, geometric voids in the lunar subsurface that shouldn't exist. He said the rover recovered 17 samples of manufactured material. Not one.
17. Different alloys, different compositions, all showing evidence of advanced fabrication, all dating to between 3.8 and 4.3 billion years old. He said Chinese scientists dated the structures using multiple methods: isotope analysis, radiation exposure, impact weathering. All methods converged on the same timeline. The structures were built before the South Pole Aitken impact, before that asteroid hit. They survived the impact because they were deep enough, protected enough, engineered to withstand catastrophic events. And Joe said something else, something that made the broadcast get cut. He said the structures aren't empty. The thermal signatures, the movement, the activation events, they're not just residual power systems maintaining baseline operations. Something is down there, something functional, something that responded when the rover approached, something that... The feed cut there, mid-sentence. Joe was escorted away. The press conference ended abruptly. Taiwan granted him asylum, but he disappeared from public view immediately after. No interviews, no follow-up statements, just silence. I tried to contact him through intermediaries, through back channels. Got one message back, 5 words. They made me stop talking. Who's they? Taiwan? China? United States? All of the above? Doesn't matter. Joe got his message out. 17 samples, tunnel systems, something functional remaining in the structures. The truth leaked out despite every attempt to contain it. March 2022. 3 years after landing. Independent researcher named Sandra Ramirez published analysis of the hexagonal patterns visible in those leaked photos. She's a materials scientist, works in nanotechnology, specializes in self-assembling structures. She looked at those hexagons in the crater wall and recognized something. She said they're not decorative, not structural supports, not random surface features. They're solar collectors. Advanced photovoltaic cells. Arranged in hexagonal arrays because hexagons tile efficiently. Maximum surface coverage with minimum wasted space. Same principle as honeycomb. Same principle as compound insect eyes. Ramirez analyzed the size, 10 centimeters across, calculated surface area of the visible array, estimated power generation capacity. She calculated that array, just the visible portion in those photos, could generate approximately 15 kilowatts in lunar sunlight. And that's probably only a tiny fraction of the total system. The structures have been collecting solar energy for billions of years, storing it, using it to maintain operations, to power whatever systems remain functional.
That explains the thermal signatures. Active power systems generate waste heat. Even highly efficient systems lose some energy as thermal radiation. That explains the periodic fluctuations. Operational cycles, systems turning on and off, running maintenance routines, checking status, broadcasting signals. The structures are self-sustaining, solar-powered, designed to operate indefinitely without external support, designed to wait, for billions of years if necessary, waiting for someone to land nearby, to trigger their sensors, to activate their communication protocols, waiting for us. Ramirez's paper got published in a fringe science journal. Mainstream academics ignored it, called it speculation, said she was seeing patterns that weren't there. But 6 months later, Ramirez got offered a position at a Department of Energy laboratory, high-paying job, classified research. She accepted. Hasn't published anything since. They recruited her, brought her into the classified world where the real research happens, where scientists study alien technology and figure out how it works. And they made sure she'd never publish publicly again. April 2022, 3 years after landing. More leaked photos appeared, higher resolution, better angles,
showing the 4-meter circular object I mentioned earlier. These photos came from someone inside NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter imaging team. Anonymous leak, posted to multiple sites simultaneously, disappeared within hours. But the photos show details, clear details. The object isn't circular. It's octagonal. 8 sides, 8 panels arranged around a central hub. Each panel approximately 1 meter by 1.5 meters. The panels show surface texture, regular patterns, lines, markings, geometric designs that might be decorative or might be functional. The central hub rises slightly above the panels, maybe 40 centimeters tall, has a visible aperture on top, a dark opening, like a lens, or a sensor array. The object casts sharp shadows, shows 3-dimensional structure, not a flat marking, not a discoloration, a physical construct sitting on the lunar surface. And here's what's critical. The object appeared after landing, wasn't visible in December 2018 photos, was visible in February 2019 photos. But it didn't arrive. It didn't crash. It didn't get delivered. It emerged from underground. Compare the photos. The February images show disturbed regolith around the object, a circle of disrupted dust, like soil had been pushed aside from below, like something had risen up through the surface. The object is an antenna, or a sensor node, or a communication relay, something that deployed when the structures detected human presence, something that extended above the surface to improve reception, to broadcast more effectively, to monitor the landing site. China's rover photographed this object extensively from multiple angles. Close-up views showing panel details and hub structure. None of those photos have been released, but the existence of the object is confirmed by independent orbital observation, by multiple sources, by undeniable photographic evidence. Something in von Kármán crater deployed a surface installation after humans landed. Deployed it deliberately, extended it for a specific purpose, for monitoring, for communication, for preparation. June 2023, 4 years after landing. Chinese Space Agency announced Chang'e-4 mission. Launch date 2028. Landing site von Kármán crater. Exact same coordinates as Chang'e-4. Mission objectives officially state
Establish preliminary lunar research station. Test in situ resource utilization. Prepare for crewed landing. But look at the mission hardware. Chang'e-8 will carry excavation equipment, heavy drilling capability, ground-penetrating radar with 10 times the range of Chang'e-4, seismic sensors, acoustic tomography systems. That's not resource utilization equipment. That's archaeological excavation gear. That's equipment for accessing buried structures, for mapping underground facilities, for breaching sealed chambers. They're going back, with tools to dig deeper, to access the tunnel systems Joe described, to enter the structures. But here's what's really telling. Chang'e-8 will also carry something unusual, a package described in technical documents as Emergency Beacon System. Why would a lunar lander need an emergency beacon? Communications are already established, relay satellites already in place, mission control already monitoring constantly. Unless the beacon isn't for communicating with Earth, unless it's for communicating with something else, something that might respond, something that might need to be contacted if they find what they're looking for underground. China is preparing for first contact, not with humans, with whatever built those structures, with whatever might still be down there, with whatever has been broadcasting into deep space for the past 4 years. And they're preparing military assets too.
Notice how China's space program transitioned under Strategic Support Force control, how lunar missions now fall under military command, how security around Chang'e data became absolutely impenetrable. They're not treating this as science. They're treating it as national security, as military priority, as potential threat or potential advantage depending on what they find. The United States knows. That's why Artemis got fast-tracked, why Space Force exists, why NASA's budget exploded, why military satellites are watching the far side constantly. Russia knows. India knows. Every major power knows something is happening, something unprecedented, something that requires military-level secrecy and strategic positioning. They're all preparing, all racing, all positioning assets for what comes next. Because the broadcasts haven't stopped. They're getting stronger, more complex, more frequent, and something is going to respond. September 2023, 4 years after landing. The broadcast patterns finally got decoded, not by governments, not by official agencies, by independent researchers. Crowdsourced analysis. Hundreds of amateur cryptographers working together, sharing data, testing hypotheses, breaking down the signals piece by piece. They found the structure, found the encoding method, found the underlying message. The broadcasts contain 3 components. Component 1, identification code, a unique identifier for the monitoring station, probably one of many scattered across the moon or throughout the solar system. This specific installation's designation number. Component 2, status report, system diagnostics, power levels, operational status, confirmation that detection protocols have been triggered, that a technological civilization has achieved spaceflight and made contact with monitoring infrastructure. Component 3, coordinates, galactic position, not just of Earth, but of multiple locations. 37 distinct coordinate sets. 37 star systems, scattered across the Milky Way within a radius of approximately 20,000 light-years. 37 locations where similar monitoring stations exist, or where something exists worth monitoring, or where civilizations have been detected before. We're not unique. We're not the only ones being watched. This is systematic. This is organized. This is someone
some intelligence monitoring a large volume of galactic space for signs of technological development. And when they detect it, they respond. The broadcasts have been transmitting these coordinates for 4 years now, sending them to that location in Carina, 12,000 light-years away. At the speed of light, those signals have traveled 4 light-years so far. They won't arrive at their destination for another 11,996 years. Unless whatever is listening doesn't need to wait for light-speed signals. Unless they have faster ways of communicating. Quantum entanglement, wormhole networks, technologies we can't imagine. Unless they already know, already received the message through means we can't detect, and they're already responding. How long would it take them to get here? Depends on their technology. If they're limited to light speed, 12,000 years. If they have faster than light travel, could be decades, could be years, could be already on their way. December 2023, 4 years after landing. NASA detected something at the Earth-Moon L2 point, Lagrange point 2, gravitationally stable position beyond the Moon, where the James Webb Space Telescope orbits. Radar returned from something that shouldn't be there, something about the size of a school bus, stationary relative to L2 position. Not a satellite, not a known object. NASA said it was probably space debris, possibly an old rocket stage in an unexpected orbit. Nothing to worry about. But they redirected satellite assets to observe it. Multiple telescopes.
Multiple wavelengths, intense scrutiny. And the object disappeared. Not moved away, disappeared. Stopped showing up on radar, stopped reflecting light. Just vanished from detection. Either it left, or it's still there but became invisible. Amateur astronomers noticed, started asking questions online. Why was NASA tracking this object? Why did it vanish? What was it? The discussion threads got deleted, accounts suspended, comments removed. Not by NASA, by platform administrators responding to official requests. Someone doesn't want people talking about anomalous objects near the Moon. Someone doesn't want attention drawn to L2, to a location that's perfect for watching Earth, for monitoring our activities, for stationing observation equipment. What if the Moon's monitoring system called for backup? What if something arrived to watch us more closely? What if we're being studied right now by intelligence we can't detect? China's tracking it. Russia's tracking it. Classified military satellites are watching L2 constantly, watching for whatever is there, whatever appeared, whatever is observing us. And nobody's telling the public. Nobody's admitting what they see. Nobody wants to cause panic. But the evidence keeps leaking out, through amateur observers, through whistleblowers, through researchers who won't stay quiet. The truth is emerging despite every attempt to suppress it. Let me tell you what happened to the people who tried to speak out. Dr. Andreas Mogensen, the Danish astronaut who resigned from ESA. He's still alive, works in private sector, aerospace consulting. Doesn't talk about space anymore, doesn't give interviews. When approached about Chang'e-4, he says, "I cannot comment on classified international missions." Dr. Claudia Kessler, German astrophysicist whose paper got scrubbed. She's teaching now, university position, basic astronomy courses, publishes occasionally on non-controversial topics. Her colleagues say she won't discuss anything related to lunar research. Says it's not her field anymore. Professor Jean-Luc Vago, French space scientist who showed those closed-door slides about geometric patterns. He's retired, living in countryside France, refuses all interview requests.
His former colleagues say he never recovered from his time working on Chang'e data, that he saw something that changed him. Bob Lazar was right. Not about Area 51 specifically, but about how disclosure works. You don't get dramatic announcements. You don't get official confirmation. You get careers destroyed. You get people silenced. You get incremental leaks that paint a picture over time. The scientists who saw the data, who understood what China found, they were offered choices. Join classified programs and continue the research in secret, or leave the field entirely and stay quiet. Most chose silence. Some chose continued research in black projects. A few tried to speak out and got crushed. But enough information escaped, enough pieces leaked, enough evidence accumulated that people who pay attention can see the pattern, can understand what's really happening on the moon. Here's what keeps me up at night. We're children, playing in a sandbox, thinking we're alone, thinking we're special, thinking the universe revolves around our tiny world. And all along, we've been watched, monitored, cataloged by intelligence so far beyond us we can't comprehend their technology, can't understand their motives, can't predict their actions. They left monitoring stations billions of years ago, before Earth had complex life, before dinosaurs, before anything we'd recognize as civilization. They seeded the solar system with sensors and waited for something to evolve intelligence, to develop technology, to reach space, to trigger the alert protocols. We did that. We triggered it.
When we landed on the moon, when we drove a rover near those buried structures, when we activated sensors that had been dormant for eons, we announced ourselves. We said, we're here, we're technological, we're ready. Ready for what? We don't know. First contact, evaluation, judgment, incorporation into some galactic community, extinction if we're deemed threatening. We don't know, because they haven't responded yet. Or they have responded, but we can't detect it. Or they're already here watching, and we're too primitive to notice. China understands this. That's why they're digging. They need to understand the technology, need to find something that explains the purpose, need to discover whether we're in danger or being welcomed or simply being studied as specimens. And they're not sharing what they learn, because knowledge is power. Understanding alien technology first means controlling humanity's future, means determining how we respond, means deciding what happens next. So they excavate in secret. They analyze in silence. They prepare for scenarios they won't discuss publicly, while the rest of us live normal lives, go to work, pay bills, worry about human problems, completely unaware that everything changed when that probe touched down in von Kármán crater. Completely unaware that we're not alone anymore. Never were. But now they know we know. And that changes everything. January 2024, 5 years after landing. The broadcasts intensified, tripled in frequency, now transmitting almost continuously. Different patterns, more complex modulation, higher power output. Ground stations around Earth detect them constantly, can't ignore them, can't pretend they're natural phenomena anymore. And there's something new, something that started 3 months ago. A response signal, faint, distant, coming from the direction of Carina Nebula. Same direction the moon's broadcasts target, same frequency band,
Same modulation characteristics.
Something 12,000 light-years away is answering. Impossibly fast. Far faster than light-speed communication should allow. Using physics we don't understand. Using technology we can't explain. They're talking. The moon's monitoring system and whatever built it. Back and forth communication, status updates and acknowledgements and instructions possibly. What are they saying? We don't know. The encryption is beyond our capability to break. The encoding uses mathematical frameworks we don't have. The content is completely opaque to us. But they're talking about us, about Earth, about humanity, making decisions that will affect our entire species. And we're not part of the conversation. We're the subject, not the participants. China knows this. That's why Chang'e-4's launch got moved up. Originally scheduled for 2028, now launching 2026. 2 years early. Rushed. Fast-tracked. Emergency priority. They need answers before something arrives, before the situation changes, before whatever is coming gets here. NASA knows. Artemis 3 now has a secondary classified objective. Official mission, land astronauts at Lunar South Pole. Actual mission, get human explorers to the far side. Get eyes on von Kármán. Get access to the structures before China monopolizes them. Russia knows. Luna 27 now described as critical national security mission. Military involvement. Launch readiness accelerated. They all know time is running out. That whatever comes next is coming soon. That humanity needs to understand what we're dealing with before we're forced to respond. But they're not telling us. Not warning the public. Not preparing humanity for what might happen. They're preparing themselves. Their militaries, their strategic assets. Making sure they're positioned to control the narrative, to control the technology, to control the future, while keeping 7 billion people completely in the dark. Listen to me carefully. Everything I've shown you, the leaked photos, the suppressed data, the silenced scientists, the electromagnetic broadcasts, the decoded messages, it's all real. You can verify it. The information exists. The sources are documentable. The evidence is checkable. But you won't find it on mainstream news. You won't see it on official science channels. You won't hear about it from government spokespersons. Because they don't want you to know. Don't want panic. Don't want questions. Don't want pressure to disclose. Don't want to lose control of the situation. So they suppress. They classify. They intimidate. They silence. And most people never look deeper, never question the official narrative, never wonder why space programs suddenly care about the far side, never notice the patterns. But you've watched this far. You've seen the evidence. You understand what's happening. So now you have a choice. You can dismiss it, call it conspiracy theory, laugh it off, go back to your normal life pretending nothing changed. Or you can look for yourself. Download the leaked data while it's still available. Study the photos before they disappear. Read the papers that got censored. Connect the dots. And when you see it, when you understand what's really happening, you'll realize why they don't want this information spreading. Because this isn't just about the moon. This isn't just about alien structures. This is about humanity's place in the universe. About whether we're alone or observed. About whether we control our destiny or exist at the mercy of intelligence we can't comprehend. This is about everything. Arthur C. Clarke wrote in 1973,
Two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. We're not alone. The moon proves it. The structures prove it. The broadcasts prove it. The response signals prove it. They're out there. They've been watching. They left infrastructure to detect us.
And now they know we found it. What happens next depends on their intentions, on their nature, on their plans for species like us. Maybe they're benevolent. Maybe they welcome new technological civilizations. Maybe they want to help us advance, to share knowledge, to integrate us into galactic community. Maybe. Or maybe they're indifferent. Maybe we're insects to them. Maybe they catalog species and move on. Maybe discovering us means nothing to them beyond scientific data. Or maybe they're threatened. Maybe emerging civilizations are dangerous. Maybe they respond to detection by eliminating potential rivals. Maybe the monitoring stations are early warning systems. Maybe finding us triggers extinction protocols. We don't know, can't know, won't know until they arrive or respond or make their intentions clear. But here's what we do know. China is preparing for something. Russia is preparing. United States is preparing. Every major power is positioning military assets, building capabilities, developing responses. They expect something, fear something, anticipate something. And they're not telling us what. This video exists in a dangerous space. Governments don't want it spreading. Intelligence agencies monitor its distribution. Platforms receive pressure to suppress it. Copyright claims get filed. Accounts get suspended. Links get broken. If you've watched this far, you're one of the few who knows. One of the handful who've seen the full evidence, who understand what China found, what it means, what's coming. And you have a responsibility. Share this, download it, re-upload it, spread it everywhere, make copies, send links, post on every platform. Get this information out before it disappears, because they will try to delete it. They always do. Every time someone compiles the evidence, every time someone connects the dots, the video vanishes, the account terminates, the information gets scrubbed. But they can't stop everyone. If enough people download, If enough people share, if enough people refuse to let the truth die, it survives. It reaches critical mass, becomes impossible to suppress, enters public consciousness permanently. That's why I'm asking you, begging you, demanding you. Don't let this information die. Don't let them control the narrative. Don't let humanity face whatever comes next in ignorance. We deserve to know, deserve to understand, deserve to prepare. Whether that means preparing for first contact, or preparing for evaluation, or preparing for something we can't imagine. We deserve the truth. The comments section below, use it. Share your research. Post links to the evidence. Connect with others who understand. Build a community that refuses to accept official lies. They're watching the comments. They'll try to delete them, scrub the inconvenient ones, shadow ban the truth tellers. But speak anyway, document anyway, share anyway. Because the alternative is letting them control everything. Letting them decide humanity's future without our input. Letting them hide the greatest discovery in history because it's politically inconvenient. Unacceptable. January 6th, 2026. Right now. As you watch this, Chang'e-4 is still active, still transmitting encrypted data, still exploring structures 5 years later. The broadcasts continue,
every 12 hours, regular as clockwork, sending status updates, receiving responses. Something in Carina is listening. Something in Carina is answering. Something in Carina might be traveling here right now, and humanity remains mostly unaware, distracted by terrestrial concerns, by politics and economics and celebrity gossip, completely oblivious to the cosmic drama unfolding in orbit around our world. But a small number understand. Scientists who saw the data, intelligence analysts who track the signals, military planners who prepare contingencies, researchers who piece together leaked information. And now, you. You've seen the evidence.
You understand the implications. You know what governments are hiding, what space agencies discovered, what structures wait beneath von Kármán crater. So what will you do with this knowledge? Forget it? Dismiss it? Pretend it doesn't matter? Or spread it? Fight for disclosure? Demand answers? Force the truth into public consciousness? The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Because whatever happens next, first contact or final judgment or something we can't predict, it's happening soon. The broadcasts are getting stronger, the responses more frequent, the preparations more urgent. Time is running out for discovery, for understanding, for preparing humanity. And the only thing standing between truth and total suppression is people like you. People willing to look, willing to question, willing to share. Be that person. Share this video. Download the evidence. Spread the truth before they delete everything, before they silence everyone, before it's too late. Because I'm telling you right now, this video won't last. My channel won't last. They'll find a way to shut it down, to remove the information, to erase the evidence. But if you've downloaded it, if you've shared it, if you've made copies, it survives. The truth survives. And maybe, just maybe, humanity survives too. When they come, when they arrive, when they make contact or judgment or whatever they plan, maybe we'll be ready. Because enough people knew, enough people prepared, enough people refused to accept the lies. That's our only chance. Knowledge, truth, disclosure. Fight for it while you still can. I'll leave you with this. Look at the moon tonight. That silver disk in the sky, that familiar presence we've watched for millennia. Understand that something ancient is buried there, something waiting, something monitoring, something that detected us and called home. Understand that structures older than human civilization rest beneath that gray dust. Solar arrays collecting power, Communication systems broadcasting, sensors tracking our development. Understand that we're not alone. Never were. But now they know, we know. And everything is about to change. The question isn't whether we're ready. The question is whether we'll face it honestly, with full knowledge, with truth. Or whether we'll let governments decide our future in secret, make choices for us, determine humanity's fate without our consent. Your choice, our choice, humanity's choice. Make it count. Download this video now, before it's gone, before they scrub it, before the truth disappears again. Share it everywhere. Tell everyone. Wake them up.
because the clock is ticking. The broadcasts continue. The response signals strengthen. And something is coming. Be ready.